Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Lunacy with Colleen Marie. I am your host and the resident astrologer here at the wonderful PCS&M Congregational Church, and I am so excited to share some of the things that are coming up here at PCS&M before we start launching into what's going on in the stars. Of course, I will say briefly, we are coming off of an intense full moon yesterday. It was in the sign of Leo, and it likely had us kind of facing some unexpected things. And I think given those of us in New England and really across the United States, we definitely had some wacky weather. So that certainly contributed to it, but I'm sure many of us can relate to some unexpected things happening in our personal lives over this past weekend. But luckily, PCS&M has some great programs to help keep us grounded and keep us feeling really balanced and keeping our cup full. So first of all, we do have breath work with Matt Thompson tomorrow at 11 a.m. on every Tuesday. And this week, the focus is on the chakras. And it's a breath work practice that really allows us to dive into emotional blocks and stresses. Then on Wednesday, there's a midweek reset yoga, gentle flow with Anna, the self-care doula. Anna, I should say. Anna's amazing. Her yoga flow is just so restorative and amazing. And it really lets you reset your nervous system with a nice slow flow. Then on Friday, there's a really cool program at the church, in Weymouth. And that would be Be the Magic You Seek. And it's all about the magical history of mushrooms. So mushrooms, both in modern medicine as well as, their place throughout history, ancient mystical practices all the way up to current use. And this event will really give us a chance to understand mushrooms for all of these nutritional, medicinal, purposes. And there'll be a really cool samples and coupons for functional mushroom supplements and all that good stuff. And finally, on Saturday, we have Soul Saturday with DJ Miziesis. I'm going to say that wrong. I'm sorry. I should have probably asked how to pronounce this. But that is at high noon to 3 p.m. on Saturday. Come on down, raise the vibration, hang out with some amazing people at the Weymouth shop. So that's just a little bit about what's going on in that amazing world, in this amazing world of PCS&M, but what is going on in the stars, right? We are coming off, as I said, a pretty intense full moon. It's in the sign of Leo, and it had a severe square to the sign of, the planet of Uranus in Taurus. Lots of fixed energy is coming to the surface. So if we've had things that we kind of don't question or we take them as truth, they could be coming to the surface right now and kind of being shifted and changed. And that can be obviously a really intense experience, but it can also be a breakthrough. And it can be really positive for that reason. So it's a matter of us kind of learning how to co-create with the cosmos and not allowing the intensity of this square to Uranus overwhelm us, but seeing it as a breath of fresh air, an opportunity to bring change in that is needed. So if we've been really kind of avoiding certain situations and changes in our lives, this is the time to step in and really do what needs to be done to make those shifts. That is the positive kind of side of all of this. Whenever Uranus is involved, it can feel like we got struck by lightning, but that can also feel really positive if we use it, if we don't try to hold on to it, and we use it to enact meaningful change in our lives. One of the important side, themes of this full moon is that of Leo medicine. Leo is all about embracing our leadership and our light and our loyalty. So when we really live in that Leo place, we are letting our light shine, letting our personality shine. We are embracing everything to do with leadership. So stepping into the limelight and owning our own kind of sovereignty as a king or queen or whatever we want to call ourselves, this kind of level of royalty that we can, put the crown on ourselves, right? If it's been feeling like you've been taking care of everybody else first, this is really a powerful time to fill our cup. And I think this medicine is going to really get us through a kind of intense week that we have ahead. So any way that you can kind of embrace that Leo light, I recommend that you do so this week, because that's going to help us get through some of the intensity. Now let's talk about what's going on. One of the big things is early this week, we had it yesterday during the full moon, and it's going to be continuing really until Tuesday, is a square between Venus and Mars. Venus being the sacred feminine, Mars being the divine masculine. The two at a conflicting angle means that we might be finding tempers flaring. We might be coming into some passionate exchanges with people, especially the ones we care about. That can be the more downside of this energy, but the positive side of this energy means, playfulness, breakthrough, passion. It can be steamy and sexy too. So finding ways to bring that up a notch, really finding the higher vibration of this intensity, but also just being prepared to know that tempers could flare. And we've got Mars in Gemini, which just wants to look at all the details. We've got Venus in Pisces that is super dreamy and imaginative. So it's kind of this push and pull between, do I focus on the here and now, or do I dream big and kind of step back? And finding that balance in relationships can be really difficult. And that's kind of a theme, I think, throughout this week, figuring out where the boundary needs to be versus how we can really be there for others while not kind of giving too much of ourselves. So that's going to be a theme really throughout this week. I will say as well that today there is a beautiful sextile between Mercury and Neptune. Mercury, the planet of communication, Neptune, the planet of divine connection and oneness. So this can be a very psychic time. It can be a time when we have kind of a bigger perspective on these kind of questions of the mind. Imagination can be really powerful at this time. So all of that is, I think, something we can be harnessing for the good. So it is a very positive connection. The other thing is that the moon does come into an opposition with Saturn today. Saturn has been moving through Aquarius for quite some time. The moon, in its last degrees of Leo, is hitting up against Saturn. Saturn can feel a little bit depressing sometimes. Saturn tends to be the planet of lessons, and when there's an opposition, we might feel like our emotions and like what needs to be done are kind of at odds with each other. So, if that's coming in for us, it's a good time to kind of set up some emotional boundaries, as I mentioned, and recognizing that sometimes we just have to get down to business and get some work done, even if our emotions threaten to kind of take over. So trying to find the balance between those two things is really important today. All right, moving into Tuesday, the moon moves into Virgo. And we know with Virgo, people tend to kind of be a little perfectionistic. So when the moon is here, we're going to see that with ourselves. So just be careful not to be too hard on yourself and self-critical throughout the middle of this week, really from Tuesday until I think it's Thursday, early hours on Thursday. It's a great time, though, to focus on our routines and our details, the nitty-gritty in our life, kind of those little pieces on our checklist that need to get taken care of. This is a really good time, Tuesday through Thursday, to work on that. Especially because the sun comes into alignment with Saturn. So I mentioned before, Saturn is this planet of lessons, but also long-term goals and, career dreams and focusing on boundaries and all those things. And with the sun in alignment here, we're gonna really feel this. We're gonna feel this really all of February. So if you've been kind of wanting to think about these big picture questions and set some, things into motion and get some work done, this is actually a really good time. We've got all of the planets in direct motion, no retrogrades until April. So a lot can get accomplished in a little bit of time. And while Saturn tends to be a little heavy and maybe a little depressing sometimes, it is also very much going to help us focus when we need to. So just know that it can bring focus, determination, goals, career gains. Taking on responsibility is something we're capable of doing during this time, but just know that at the same time, you might be a little hard on yourself. So I would encourage you to be careful when it comes to that. being gentle with ourselves is always important, especially with the moon in Virgo and the sun lining up with Saturn. We might be a little, critical. Tuesday, we have a sextile between Venus and Uranus. This can bring some refreshing kind of freedom and personal expression, especially in our relationships, or maybe with, our aesthetic. So if we want to try a different hairstyle, a different, type of clothing, if we want to design our house a little bit, shake some things up, this is actually a really great time to do that. It's also a good time to, make sure that you are giving your partner and your close friendships the space that they need. Uranus wants freedom. Venus wants to come together. When they're in a nice alignment, even though they don't technically get along, we can then maybe incorporate some of those two things together. So excitement in our one-to-one partnerships, a little bit of fun, a little bit of freedom together to kind of do our own thing. Like you do you, boo. That's great. We like that for Tuesday. At the same time, though, the moon does come into a square with Mars on Tuesday, which can be a little temper flaring. And again, much like this Venus Mars square that we're experiencing now, then the moon comes in. So yeah, it could be a time where it's a little kind of, tension could alight. So watching for that on Tuesday, especially like this push and pull between wanting to be lighthearted while also taking things really seriously. Next, we have on Wednesday, the moon comes into an opposition with Neptune. So this is actually it can be a time where we might be kind of taking on other people's stuff like it's our own. So watch for emotional enmeshment and codependence on Wednesday, making sure that we've got those strong boundaries and we're really solid in who we are and not really, taking too much on that isn't our own. It is, though, a great, powerful day for healing and spiritual connection if we choose to go the high vibe way. Then we have Thursday, the moon moves into Libra, and it will be in Libra until midday Saturday. So we're talking about friendships, partnerships, balance, beauty. It can be a very peaceful time. So we like that for Thursday and Friday. It's been an intense week, so it's really a time for healing and just kind of coming to a place of balance. And we also have a nice kind of opposition between the moon and Jupiter, the giver of gifts and luck. Yes, they are in opposition, so it can be a little bit to an extreme, especially when it comes to our emotions kind of taking over and maybe being a little overindulgent. But the good thing is that Jupiter is the most generous and again, lucky of the planets. So even with kind of a difficult opposition, we're still going to get some love and healing and positive emotion. Friday, we have a exact conjunction between Mercury and Pluto. Pluto is in its very final degrees of Capricorn. I've been talking about this every week because Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius in March of this year. But it does have to finish those last few degrees of Capricorn before it moves on. Mercury is catching up to the sun, which is now in Aquarius, and it first has to go right next to Pluto. It's only going to be a short little thing, but we will likely be experiencing some deep breakthroughs. We might even find some transformational conversations, some mental focus and clarity is possible here. This can be a time where, too, we want to watch for people kind of trying to control with words because we've got Mercury, the planet of communication, and Pluto, the planet of control. So watching for that. But the beautiful thing is this is a really great time to get into deep insight about hidden emotional motivations, stuff that's been in the closet for a really long time coming into the light. And that can obviously be a little bit upsetting at times. And this can be, exacerbated by the fact that the moon comes to a square with this conjunction on Saturday. So we're really feeling this, but it can mean breakthrough too. So if we've been kind of avoiding things and shoving them down and ignoring them, sometimes it's very much enlightening and really freeing to bring it out to the light. Finally, Saturday is a little bit emotionally intense, and Sunday, because we do have the moon moving into Scorpio, which is the ruler of Pluto, or Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, I should say. So they have a similar vibration where we're really looking deeply at what are the hidden motivations and what's going on behind the scenes, and how can I kind of understand this on a really deep level, which can be really powerful, but obviously at the same time, as I said, a little bit intense. Now, I will say too, we do have our third quarter moon coming up on Monday, and this is a fixed moon cycle. All of the major moons, the first quarter moon, the full moon, and the third quarter moon, and the new moon of last month have all been in fixed signs. So it can be a little bit more intense for those of us who also are a fixed sign. So if you are a Leo, an Aquarius, a Scorpio, a Taurus, you've likely been really feeling this past month and this particular lunar cycle. The third quarter moon is a time of letting go. It's a time of saying, all right, I have learned massive lessons with this full moon, and a lot came to the surface on this one, as we've talked about. There were tempers flaring, there were unexpected things that were happening. Now I'm moving into, how can I integrate this? How can I release the lessons and kind of turn it over in order to prepare for next week's new moon? So the new moon coming next week, the new moon's always a time of deep, deep, deep kind of introspection. And of course, I mean, not this coming Monday, but the following. So this coming Monday, Tuesday is Valentine's Day. We've got this third quarter moon in the sign of Scorpio. Might be having us really wanting to connect with people on a really deep level, to really get intimate and close, which can be both really positive and a little bit intense. So again, we've got a lot going on this week. I think one of the biggest themes here is rolling with the punches, expecting the unexpected, noticing when we need to be more self-aware of how we are showing up. In other words, are you putting the oxygen mask on yourself first? Are you letting your light shine? Are you owning your self-confidence? Are you taking care of your garden first, right? We've got all these other things going on all the time, but if we aren't really honoring our needs and being selfish, right? Because that's what Leo is all about, is, letting our light shine and being a little self-centered. There is a time and a place for that. And it's important to own our power and to know what we are worth. And if you've been struggling with some of these questions, I think it's so important to dive back into, how can I be like the sun? How can I align with that solar energy, which is all about, letting that light shine. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will be here, of course, next week at high noon every Monday with the amazing PCS&M. If you have questions, if you want to reach out to me, please feel free. My website is ColleenMarieHealing.com. I am putting together a really fun coaching program that has a lot to do with understanding ourselves from a mythological perspective and understanding our, astrology, as well as the story and the journey of the tarot, and bringing it all together in order to kind of heighten our self-awareness and understand where we are at this juncture in our lives. So that'll be coming. It'll probably drop, why not, when Pluto moves into Aquarius and we've got that, spring equinox upon us. So keep tuned for that. If you'd like to join my newsletter, I'd love to have you. Shoot me your email. And yeah, as always, have a great, great week. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.